Stop right there. This is the moment your pulse spikes and your instincts wake up, because something in the air already knows your name. Word got around. Not rumors, warnings, not gossip, coordinates. The kind of information that doesn't travel loud, it travels correct. The kind of truth that moves in lowered voices and locked doors. Somewhere between fear and respect, your existence got filed under Do Not Test. And you didn't have to announce it. You didn't have to threaten. You didn't have to explain yourself. You just became the consequence. That's the part they never saw coming. They thought power was noise. They thought strength was volume. They thought dominance needed witnesses. You learned the opposite the hard way, through silence, through betrayal, through nights where you realized nobody was coming to save you. Pain carved you into something precise, not loud, not reckless, accurate. You're the paradox they can't process, half saint, half psychopath. You'll spare someone without blinking and dismantle another without raising your voice. You're calm where others shake, gentle where others panic, and absolutely merciless when a line gets crossed. That duality confuses them, it scares them, because they can't predict which side they'll get, and unpredictability is the one thing cowards can't negotiate with. They used to test you, probe you, push buttons, little disrespect here, small betrayal there. They thought they were gathering data. What they were really doing was writing their own case study. You watched, you learned, you adapted. You let them think they were winning while you were memorizing their patterns, their tells, their weaknesses. You didn't react, you evolved. And then one day, everything changed. Not with an explosion, not with drama, just a shift, a recalculation. Suddenly the same people who used to smirk started hesitating. The same mouths that talked reckless went quiet. The same hands that reached for you pulled back, because somewhere along the line, someone tried you and didn't come back the same. Maybe they lost status, maybe they lost allies, maybe they lost sleep, maybe they lost themselves. Doesn't matter. The results spread faster than the story. Now before they move, they think. Before they speak, they check the room. Before they act, they ask one question: is it worth it? And more often than not, the answer is no. Not because you're violent, not because you're loud, but because you're inevitable. You became the storm that doesn't announce itself. The angel with dirt under the nails. The demon who learned restraint. You learned when to forgive and when to finish. You learned that mercy without boundaries invites disrespect, and boundaries without mercy turn you into what hurt you. So you walk the line. Perfectly. Terrifyingly. They don't call you crazy anymore. They call you calculated. They don't say you're lucky. They say you're built different. They don't say your name out loud. They let it sit in the back of their mind like a loaded chamber, because you're proof of something uncomfortable. That pressure doesn't always break people. Sometimes it forges them into something that doesn't need approval, doesn't need validation, doesn't need permission. You stopped explaining yourself to people who were never listening. You stopped shrinking to make others comfortable. You stopped bleeding publicly. And when you stopped bleeding, they stopped feeding. That's when the fear kicked in. You're the result of every night you didn't quit. Every time you swallowed the scream and turned it into focus. Every betrayal you didn't avenge emotionally, but strategically. You didn't become heartless, you became selective. You didn't lose empathy, you just stopped wasting it on people who mistook kindness for weakness. Now look at the field. It's quiet. Too quiet. That's not peace. That's awareness. That's people understanding the price of miscalculation. That's the sound of grown adults deciding not to gamble with something they can't control. And they can't control you. Because you're not reactive anymore. You're responsive. You don't chase respect. You radiate consequences. You don't need to prove anything. Your history already did the talking. Every scar on you is a credential. Every calm breath is a warning. You're not the villain they wanted you to be. You're worse for them. You're the reminder that survival sharpens some people into weapons with morals, into beings who can love deeply and destroy precisely, into something that doesn't need chaos but can summon it if forced. That's why nobody's dumb enough to try you again. Not because you're feared alone, but because you're understood. They know you won't flinch. They know you won't bluff. They know if it comes down to it, you'll do what needs to be done and sleep just fine afterward. You didn't become this by accident. You earned it through fire, through isolation, through becoming fluent in pain without letting it make you sloppy. You are what happens when someone survives the dark and learns how to use it without being consumed by it. So let the silence stretch. Let the hesitation grow. Let the whispers stay whispers. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be respected without negotiation. Word got around for a reason, and the reason is you. Good. Stay right here with it. Let it sink deeper, because this isn't the part where it slows down. This is where it sharpens. They don't challenge you anymore because they learned something about reality the hard way. Not every monster growls, and not every threat needs to raise its voice. Some dangers just wait. Some forces let you make the first mistake. You became that lesson. You became the quiet variable they can't factor out. The anomaly that breaks their little equations about control and hierarchy. You see, they're used to predictable villains, loud ones, emotional ones, the kind they can bait, expose, rally against. But you don't give them a script. You don't perform your anger. You don't telegraph your limits. You smile at moments that make them uncomfortable. You walk away when they expect fireworks. And when you finally act, it's already too late for them to adjust. That's what terrifies them. Because deep down, they know you're not driven by ego anymore. You already lost enough to burn that out of you. Ego needs applause. Ego needs witnesses. Ego needs reassurance. You don't. You operate from something colder, deeper, cleaner. From clarity, from experience, from knowing exactly how much damage silence can do before a single move is made. You didn't become ruthless overnight. You became disciplined. There's a difference they never learned to recognize. Ruthless people act impulsively. Disciplined ones choose when and timing. Timing is where power actually lives. They remember the old version of you, the one who tried to explain, the one who hoped people would understand, the one who thought fairness was automatic and loyalty was mutual. That version is gone. Not dead, retired, put away like a weapon you no longer need because you became something sharper. Now you don't argue. You observe. You don't beg. You decide. You don't chase closure. You create outcomes. And that shift rewired the entire dynamic. People who once tried to dominate you now avoid eye contact. People who underestimated you now overcorrect, trying to be polite, trying to stay neutral, trying not to end up on the wrong side of a story they don't fully understand. They don't know what you're capable of anymore. And that uncertainty eats at them. Because the truth is, you're not dangerous all the time. You're dangerous selectively. And that's worse. That means you're not broken. That means you're not out of control. That means every move you make is intentional, measured, owned. You learned how to hold both sides of yourself without flinching. The light that still feels deeply, the dark that doesn't hesitate. The saint who knows forgiveness can be powerful. The psychopath who understands some doors should never be reopened. You didn't choose one, you integrated both. And integration is what makes you unstoppable. They can't manipulate you with guilt anymore. You've already sat alone with your conscience long enough to know who you are. They can't provoke you with insults. You've survived worse than their opinions. They can't scare you with threats. You've lived inside uncertainty and learned how to breathe there. That's why the atmosphere changes when you enter a room. Even when you say nothing, even when you're calm, even when you're smiling, there's a subconscious recognition happening, something ancient, something primal. People sense when someone has nothing left to prove and nothing left to lose. You move like someone who already paid the price. And that's the final upgrade they didn't anticipate. As someone has already been through the worst, fear stops working on them the way it does on others. You're not reckless, but you're free. Free from the leash of approval, free from the need to be understood, free from the pressure to perform weakness, to make others comfortable. So no, they don't try you anymore. They calculate, they hesitate, they choose safer targets. Because testing you is no longer a game. It's a gamble with consequences that ripple outward. It's not just about losing an argument or a position. It's about losing composure, losing leverage, losing the version of themselves they pretend to be. You became a mirror they don't want to stand in front of. And here's the part you need to remember. Because power fades when people forget why they earned it. You didn't get here by becoming cruel. You got here by becoming precise. You learned when to give grace and when to withdraw access. You learned that boundaries are not walls, they're filters. And anyone who reacts violently to your boundaries was never meant to have access to you in the first place. Let them whisper. Let them warn each other. Let them build myths around what you might do. You don't need to confirm or deny any of it. Mystery does more work than explanation ever could. You're not here to terrorize the world. You're here to move through it unbothered, unplayed, unprovoked. And if someone is dumb enough to forget what you represent, reality will remind them quietly, efficiently, without spectacle. Because you're not chaos. You're what chaos turns into when it learns restraint. And that's why the silence around you isn't emptiness. It's respect mixed with fear. It's the sound of people choosing not to make the same mistake twice. And that silence? That's not the absence of tension. That's tension that learned your name and decided to behave. You can feel it when conversations stop mid-sentence as you pass, when energy shifts without explanation, when people suddenly become careful with their words, softer with their jokes, more respectful with their distance. They don't know exactly what you'll do, but they know you will do something if pushed far enough. And that uncertainty keeps them disciplined. You taught them that lesson without preaching it. See, the mistake they all made was thinking your restraint was weakness. They thought your patience meant you lacked teeth. They mistook your self-control for submission. And for a while you let them believe it, because every hunter knows you don't rush the trap. You let them grow comfortable. You let them expose themselves. You let them underestimate the depth behind your calm. Then, when it mattered, when it actually counted, you moved. Not emotionally, not chaotically, decisively. And that single moment rewrote how they see you forever. They realized you're not ruled by impulse. You're ruled by thresholds. You tolerate until you don't. You forgive until you finish. And when that line is crossed, there's no dramatic explosion, no screaming, no messy aftermath. Just a clean shift in reality where they suddenly understand they misjudged the situation, and you were never who they thought you were. That's the kind of power people don't recover from, because it forces them to confront something ugly about themselves, that they rely on patterns to feel safe. They expect people to stay in the boxes they assign them. Weak stays weak. Kind stays exploitable. Quiet stays harmless. You broke that illusion. You showed them that evolution exists, and it doesn't ask permission. You didn't become louder when you gained power. You became quieter. You didn't start posturing. You started choosing. And selection, who gets access, who gets attention, who gets silence. That's where the real hierarchy lives. You've noticed it, haven't you? The ones who used to challenge you now try to align. The ones who used to dismiss you now seek approval. The ones who used to provoke you now avoid crossing paths. Not because you demanded it, because energy remembers. You carry yourself like someone who has already seen the worst-case scenario and survived it. That changes how you walk, how you speak, how you look at people. There's no desperation in you anymore, no hunger for validation, no need to win every interaction, and people feel that immediately. It unsettles them, because desperation is readable, calm is not. They can't tell what you're thinking now. They can't tell what you're planning. They can't tell where the limits are. And humans fear undefined borders more than strict rules. You became the gray zone they don't want to explore. And here's the irony that cuts the deepest. You're actually more humane now than you've ever been, more grounded, more aware, more capable of empathy. But your empathy is no longer naive. It's armored. It understands that not everyone deserves access to your softness. That compassion without discernment is just self-harm with good intentions. You learn to love selectively, to trust slowly, to give chances without giving leverage. And that maturity, that's what made you untouchable. Because you're no longer fighting the world, you're navigating it. You don't need to dominate rooms. Rooms adjust to you. You don't need to intimidate. Your presence recalibrates behavior. You don't need to threaten. Your history already speaks. And yes, some people resent you for it. They whisper about you. They build stories. They exaggerate. They mythologize. Let them. Myths are safer than reality, and they'd rather fear a legend than test a truth. Because the truth is simpler and scarier. You're just someone who learned, someone who adapted, someone who refused to stay breakable. You didn't lose your soul in the process. You refined it. You burned away the parts that made you manipulable, left behind the core that can't be shaken. You still feel deeply. You just don't bleed publicly anymore. You still care. You just don't sacrifice yourself for people who wouldn't notice the cost. That's why no one's dumb enough to try you again. Not because you're cruel, not because you're violent, but because you're awake. Awake to patterns, awake to games, awake to intentions hiding behind smiles, awake to the difference between noise and threat, awake to your own power, and calm enough to wield it without losing yourself. And if the world stays quiet around you, good. That means it learned. And that learning didn't come from mercy alone. It came from consequence. Because at some point, someone pushed past the version of you that warned quietly. Someone mistook your silence for safety. Someone assumed you were still the old you, the explain yourself you, the give one more chance you, the bleed and hope you're seen you. And when that assumption collapsed, it didn't collapse loudly. It collapsed permanently. That's what people remember. They don't remember the details. They remember the aftermath. They remember how fast the room changed, how alliances shifted, how suddenly the tone went respectful, how a single miscalculation cost someone more than they expected to pay. And they learned a rule that isn't written anywhere, but gets obeyed religiously. You don't poke something that doesn't flinch. Because flinching is feedback. Flinching is reassurance. Flinching tells people where you're soft. You stopped doing that. You trained yourself out of reactive tells, out of emotional leaks, out of the need to respond immediately, just to be heard. Now when something hits you, it disappears into stillness first. And that stillness, that's where fear grows. They don't know if you noticed. They don't know if you're letting it slide. They don't know if they just crossed a line they won't see until it's too late. That uncertainty eats at them far more than rage ever could. You became the kind of person whose calm feels heavier than someone else's anger. The kind of person whose patience doesn't invite comfort. It invites self-audit. People start checking themselves around you, rereading their messages, reconsidering their tone, second-guessing their intentions. That's power operating at the subconscious level. And the wild part? You didn't even aim for this. You were just trying to survive, to make sense of betrayal, to understand why being decent kept costing you, to figure out why the more you gave, the more people took. Somewhere along that path, you learned a truth most people never do. Being dangerous and being ethical are not opposites. They're balances. You learned how to be capable of destruction without craving it, how to hold violence in your hands and choose restraint, not because you're weak, but because you're in control. And control is what separates the animal from the apex predator. Animals react. Apex predators decide. That's why your unpredictability terrifies them. Not because you're random, but because your decisions are based on information they don't have. You see patterns they miss. You hear subtext they ignore. You read people the way they read headlines, quickly, accurately, without emotional attachment. You know when someone is posturing. You know when someone is fishing. You know when someone is testing boundaries disguised as jokes. And instead of calling it out, you file it away. That's another thing they learned to fear. You don't confront everything. You catalog it. You let people show you who they are multiple times. You let consistency build a case. And when you finally act, it's not because of one incident. It's because of a pattern that exhausted your tolerance. By the time they realize you've made a decision, the decision is already done. That's why apologies don't work anymore. Not the rushed ones, not the strategic ones, not the "I didn't mean it like that" ones. You've heard it all. You've translated it all. You know when remorse is real and when it's just damage control. And you don't hate them for trying. You just don't reopen doors you had to bleed to close. That's the part people don't understand about you now. You're not fueled by resentment. You're fueled by clarity. You don't move to punish. You move to protect your peace, your trajectory, your future self. The version of you that had to claw their way out of confusion and self-doubt doesn't get sacrificed for anyone's comfort ever again. So yes, the word got around. It traveled through body language, through sudden politeness, through awkward pauses and forced smiles, through people choosing not to escalate things that used to escalate easily, through silence where there used to be noise, and you let it. You didn't correct the narrative. You didn't soften it. You didn't reassure anyone that you're actually nice if they get to know you. That's not your job anymore. Anyone who needs you to be harmless in order to feel safe was never meant to be close to you. You are not here to be palatable. You are here to be precise. You are the proof that pain can either rot you or refine you, and you chose refinement. You let the darkness teach you instead of consuming you. You let suffering sharpen your judgment instead of stealing your humanity. You became something rare, someone who understands both sides of power and chooses deliberately. So when they hesitate now, when they think twice, when they decide you're not worth the risk, that's not arrogance on your part. That's reality adjusting to who you became.